What are the most likely landing spots for Liberty quarterback Malik Willis in the 2022 NFL Draft's first round? And what do we think of that from a fantasy football perspective in terms of what are the best fits? It's time to break his value down right here and right now as we begin another edition of Locked On Fantasy Football.
Are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. As usual, I'm your host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL and fantasy football for SportingNews.com. We told you we'd break down the top two quarterbacks in the 2022 NFL Draft. Those guys clearly are Malik Willis of Liberty and Kenny Pickett of Pittsburgh. And now there's talk of both of these guys going in the top 10. A lot of teams interested. Supply and demand at quarterback once again at work here. So we're not sure about where Cincinnati's Desmond Ridder or Ole Miss's Matt Corral will go later, potentially out of the first round, but it's very clear that Willis and Pickett are going to not be around very long at the top of that board. So what we're going to do is look at the latest odds on where these guys might land and also break down what we can expect from a fantasy football perspective from all these scenarios and what's the best path to more immediate success here for production in fantasy and reality for their new NFL teams just around the corner. We'll find those out for sure on the night of April 28th, next Thursday. So 1 week from now, we'll have teams attached to these players. We can analyze all that for you once we have that. But we also wanted to give you a scouting report on these guys, Willis and Pickett. We'll do that over the next two shows, as well as examine their best fits for fantasy. So excited to do that. Thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. We are free and available for you on all platforms. All right, today we'll tackle Malik Willis. Now, I've liked this guy for quite some time here, and people have been down on this quarterback class in general, looking at Willis and Pickett being the best examples. Now, they're not the big names that we've had in recent drafts, where we've had Trevor Lawrence of Clemson there last year with the Justin Fields of Ohio State, then you had Trey Lance of North Dakota State and Zach Wilson of BYU shoot up, and all those guys found early homes in the draft. And then just a couple of years ago, we had that marquee draft there with Joe Burrow really ending up well with the Bengals, Tua Tagovailoa on his way with the Dolphins, and Justin Herbert lighting the league on fire with the Chargers. So tough to live up to those guys for sure. A lot of good talent on the board at quarterback, but that doesn't mean these guys can't be all that productive and are going to be good NFL players and really productive in top quarterbacks here in this league. It's all about system. It's all about support here and being put in the best position by their team. So we'll go through these 7 top teams for Malik Willis today. We'll come back with Kenny Pickett, the 6 rumored teams for his landing spots here. It's very tough to know which is going to be the first quarterback available and taken here between Willis and Pickett, but we're just going to look at them individually here in the next two shows. So let's dive right into Malik Willis and what he can do. Now, I followed this kid for quite a while. Again, Liberty is where he ended up, but he started at Auburn, so he has some big school pedigree there. Moved to Liberty so he could get some playing time, really strong arm, can throw it downfield, very mentally and physically tough. That's what I like in the makeup of Malik Willis. He's not going to be fazed by anything. If he has a bad play, he's going to shake it off and go to the next one. If he gets hit a little bit, it's not going to deter him from hanging in the pocket or getting elusive outside the pocket to make plays here that are necessary. So that's why people love Willis and his ceiling. I think he has an extremely high ceiling. Kenny Pickett has a pretty nice floor, I think, too, in the right system. I think he's a little bit more dependent, where Malik Willis can make plays there regardless. He's a bit of an improviser, can get the ball downfield. Now, Liberty, we know, had a limited offensive skill supporting cast, that he's going to have an upgrade from that. So they keep that in mind, as well as offensive line. These teams in the NFL are going to put him in the best position to succeed. That means having a good, diverse receiving core, protecting him well so as he gets his feet wet and learns to play at a higher level and make that transition, and just realizing don't hold it back. Let him loose a little bit. Don't contain him into the pocket. Let him do some of the things he does well. If you need to design some runs for him to get him comfortable in the NFL, do that first. So a lot of Trey Lance potential in Malik Willis for sure. Very similar type of rises here. Lance just shot up the boards there, North Dakota State. I think he was on the radar a little bit earlier than Willis, but with Willis, it's the same thing. He's got the aggressive arm. He's going to make the throws here and just have that ability to make something out of nothing. And that's what we're looking for in fantasy football. We know that running potential is a big asset in fantasy. It gives us a high floor here with the production, so you can maybe throw in 40 to 50 rushing yards per game. You're getting close to a touchdown pass addition there to your production. When you look at the 40 to 50 there in terms of rushing yards per game, you're looking at the equivalent of 100 and 125 passing yards per game when it translates in fantasy football. So even if you get that amount here and some touchdown potential on the ground, it changes the game a little bit in terms of how we look at quarterbacks. So that's what we're hoping for Malik Willis, that the teams that look at him are just going to embrace that fact that he can be a dual threat. And you've seen more teams do that. Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, the recent examples. You have a kind of a happy medium there with Josh Allen and the Bills. They run him just enough. Of course, he's big and durable, so that's a little easier to do. He doesn't take a lot of hits there. Really doesn't absorb hits as much as deliver them with how big he is. So Malik Willis, you got to be a little bit more careful than that. 6 feet, just around there with his height, maybe 6'1", can push it to some degree, but he's not just a monster guy. He's going to have to be smart and elusive, but you want somebody who's tough and built well for that size. And Russell Wilson will get to where he might end up to potentially replace Wilson here, but that type of player can be had here in Malik Willis. So I think teams are just identifying these guys more now. Russell Wilson, back in the day in 2012, 10 years ago, was a third-round pick. Now, people are on people like Malik Willis that have those similar skill sets a little bit more here in the NFL. They're more comfortable with that. They're able to tailor their offenses to the dual threat skill set that you're going to get from Malik Willis. I still think he's best suited throwing the ball mainly in the NFL. But again, that running ability is going to get him on the field sooner rather than later for his team versus waiting for a bridge veteran quarterback to play. He's just going to give you a little bit more upside. That's what people are looking for. So he's going to take some lumps early. We know that. He's still learning how to play this game completely at a high level, but he's going to have some dynamic plays as well. So you might have a bit more of a roller coaster ride with Malik Willis than you do with Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett, I think we're going to be more tied to his emotions and kind of overconfidence in making some plays. Malik Willis is going to be just more inexperienced there. But overall, very impressive young man. When you hear him talk at the Combine and Senior Bowl, he carries himself well, and he can definitely be the face of a franchise and a leader of a franchise. And those makeup intangibles also critical there to getting the most out of his physical skill set, creating the most out of his elite athleticism. I think it's at that level, plus that arm that's good enough to make all the throws in the NFL. So there's Malik Willis in a nutshell. And again, he needs a good support system to help him really break through and deliver and grow quickly to be a producer in fantasy football. But I'm excited about his potential for sure. We just might have to wait for a little bit based on where he goes in the draft. And that changes things as well. If you go early in the draft, you're heading to a lesser team. So you got to deal with that a little bit. But there are some teams that can help him more than others here in 2022 as a rookie and on his way to being on the fantasy football radar for many years to come. All right, we will break down those teams. There are 7 destinations. These are the most likely teams now, according to the latest draft odds there. So we'll break those down for you. And of course, I got my mock drafts at Sporting News where we're exploring all these possibilities. So it is almost time for Mother's Day, and you need to find that ideal gift. Looking for fine jewelry but having trouble choosing? Blue Nile has jewelry experts on hand 24/7. BlueNile.com, available via phone or chat to help you find a memorable gift at every budget. Mark Mother's Day with something enduring: classic diamond stud earrings, elegant tennis bracelets, birchstone pendants, and so much more, only on BlueNile.com. Celebrate the special women on your list and your life. BlueNile.com can easily navigate thousands of jewelry options at every price point, so you're looking for something for mom, but you're also looking for something for your significant other, wife, girlfriend, daughter, anyone in your life that you want to treat with jewelry, BlueNile.com is going to help you find it and find it at a high quality at a very good price. This Mother's Day, give mom something she's going to treasure forever with fine jewelry from BlueNile.com. And Locked On Sports listeners gets up to $50 off 500. Yep, that's right. For every 500 you spend, you'll get $50 there. So that first 500, you will get 50 off 500. That's a great deal. This is a podcast exclusive, only good through Mother's Day. All you have to do is use the promo code Locked On. Again, $50 off 500. That's Locked On as the promo code. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Stop stress-free and find your forever piece. Again, you'll get that 50 off 500 by using the promo code Locked On only at BlueNile.com. Go to BlueNile.com today and get that ideal gift of fine jewelry for someone special in your life. All right, we will get into the rest of our breakdown of Malik Willis here. We'll look at the 7 most rumored teams. These are the odds-on favorites to land Malik Willis in order here in the 2022 NFL Draft. Speaking of draft, thanks for making Locked On NFL and Locked On Fantasy your first listens every day. Now for a big announcement starting Thursday, April 28th. Tune into Locked On NFL Drafts, live coverage of the 2022 NFL Draft for all 3 days of real-time analysis from our extensive lineup of experts and insiders. And for those of you dying to know who your team will take, catch Odyssey and Locked On NFL Mock Draft Special, hosted by Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson, the Peacock Williamson NFL Show, all week leading up to the first pick. Again, we will go all the way through April 25th with that mock, so they're in the heart of it right now. Started on April 18th. You can check it out on Odyssey, the Odyssey NFL Mock Draft, the Odyssey and Locked On NFL Draft podcast feeds are going to take care of you there. Check out Locked On NFL Draft live on the Locked On NFL Draft YouTube page. You can check it out April 28th, starting at 7, the first night of the draft, the first round, April 29th at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And on the last day of the draft, rounds 4 through 7, April 30th will begin at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. So good coverage live on the network here for the draft. And again, thanks for listening to Locked On Fantasy Football and checking out all the other great in-depth analysis shows here on the network covering the entire league. All right, so let's look at the teams in order that have a shot at taking Malik Willis. We'll start at number 2 overall. We have the Lions sitting there. The Lions have been really hot, rumored for Malik Willis to take him that high in this draft. Yeah. What's happening with the Lions is they don't love any of the prospects there. They do maybe love Aiden Hutchinson, but there's a good chance he goes to Jaguars. Trayvon Walker would be the next choice if they stay put defensively, if they want to go that route. But then you look at their offensive line. They don't need that position really to address here with Ike Ekwonu of NC State and Evan Neal of Alabama. So they're not going to go in that direction. Kyle Hamilton is a nice luxury piece to have at safety, linebacker, kind of a hybrid there that can make plays for you. The back end, the Lions need those type of players. But at the end of the day, they need a quarterback. Jared Goff is not the answer. He was a bridge solution. They basically moved Jared Goff for Matthew Stafford to acquire those draft picks to think about the future. And this is one of those picks here. They also have number 32 from the Rams being the Super Bowl champions. So they pick second and last in this first round. So 32, they can't sit there. Malik Willis is not going to be there. So they really have to think about if they want to go in the direction, do they like Malik Willis enough there? Number 2, to make him the franchise successor to really Matthew Stafford, with Goff just having one season in there. So Goff still might play for another season, but it's a good opportunity for the Lions to stash a guy if they like his upside. Now, the Lions offer more than you think to the quarterback because you have a pretty good offensive line. I mentioned it, Taylor Decker, last year's first-round pick, Penei Sewell. You have Halapuliti Vaitai from the Eagles. He's a pretty good blocker. Jonah Jackson is looking pretty good as well. I think he can get a little bit better. But overall, this team with the guys up front, Frank Ragnow and company, pretty solid there with the offensive line, and not a lot of question marks there for Lions. So pretty good protection there. Amon-Ra St. Brown really came on, the USC product. Good draft pick a year ago as a rookie, came on when he was healthy, very productive all over the field, was a big fantasy football asset. Kind of leveling it out as a wide receiver too. They also added DJ Chark, TJ Hawkinson's the mix. Still could upgrade wide receiver more here. through the draft in later picks. So Malik Willis to the Lions would be a pretty good fit here. And again, there were some moments, I think we'll have to see how it all comes together. I think you would still put him as a QB2, but QB2 with some upside here because of the protection and some of the weapons there. Don't forget about DeAndre Swift on the backfield and Hawkinson, the ultimate tight end security blanket for a rookie quarterback. All right, I think the Lions, if they were going to go after quarterback, it would be Willis over Pickett, that high at number 2. The Panthers, I think, could look at either. So there's a couple teams that are crossing over that have value for Willis or Pickett in different ways. You look at the Carolina Panthers, that would keep Malik Willis in the South here. And the Panthers, 11 years ago, they drafted a guy out of Auburn, first overall, Cam Newton. They're picking 6th here. So Willis has that Auburn connection here. Will they go down that route again? Sam Darnold, they're kind of stuck with him right now. Can't figure out if they can trade for Baker Mayfield, depending on what Robbie Anderson thinks. So a lot of question mark about the Panthers and their quarterback situation with Darnold, and people thinking that they can't rest on him, and the Panthers are maybe leaning that way. It's Charles Cross, the third offensive lineman, may not be exactly the value they're looking for after Ekonwu and Neal are off the board. So you're looking at the Panthers leaning more to quarterback. I think right now, if you polled, they would be going Pickett over Willis, but I think in the end, Willis is a better fit for what the Panthers want to do. So that's something they have to keep in mind. They want a little bit extra running juice there. Pickett is a very good athlete as well, but Willis gives them a little bit higher ceiling here to compete in the NFC South. And that's the thing. You want to go for the ceiling for the NFC South. So whether you're the Panthers or the Falcons or the Saints, we'll talk about Atlanta and New Orleans as well here, that you want to be positioned there for when the GOAT retires. And that looks like it's going to be next year, 2023. So if you have Willis a chance to redshirt or get his feet wet here, learn the ropes in the NFL, and then we'll come back stronger for year 2. You're looking really good here because then you're ahead of the cycle. Because right now, look at the other situations of the other teams. The Panthers have Sam Darnold. The Falcons have Marcus Mariota. The Saints are looking at Jameis Winston and Andy Dalton. So really says up there for the Panthers that, hey, we want to get ahead. Brady's going to retire. The Bucs are going to go back to the end of this line. One of these teams can position themselves well for Willis here in year 2. So I think Lions are a better fit because the Panthers, I mean, they have DJ Moore, but who knows with Anderson if they're tied with him. Terrace Marshall, their Christian McCaffrey is inconsistent, staying healthy. The Panthers, of course, if they take a quarterback, the opportunity cost would be not upgrading their offensive line. That's a tough situation there for that quarterback. So Lions get the edge with the offensive line. I think even with the skill set and having a little bit more diversity, the receiving core and DeAndre Swift being a little bit more reliable at this point than Christian McCaffrey, more conducive for Willis to produce in Detroit than in Carolina. The Steelers also are appealing here, and it doesn't really matter who you plug in there. That is a high upside offense right now. Mitchell Trubisky might have a little bit of backdoor fantasy value. That's how interesting it is. They upgraded their offensive line a little bit, kept things intact in some areas, but you have the weapons, Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, Pat Freiermuth. We talked about it quite a bit. And really like Willis and Claypool being a big deal here. So, yeah, I do like the Lions to some degree, again, with, say, Brown and Hawkinson and that offensive line. The Lions definitely have the edge over the Panthers and Steelers up front, but the Steelers, I think, have the overall receiving edge with those 3 guys, with the Johnson and Claypool and Hawkinson, and just looking at maybe adding another third big play receiver in this draft or a big slot to replace Juju Smith-Schuster. So that's what you could definitely see with the Steelers happening, and they would really put Malik Willis in position to succeed. You have the Falcons and what they can do here, and they're another team here that would be in play for Malik Willis in the top 10. The Steelers are picking 20th, so less likely scenario there, but the Steelers would be number 1 in terms of the skill set. The Falcons would be pretty low there. They have to figure out their offensive line. They've got some wide receiver help here on the way, probably with Calvin Ridley suspended and Russell Gage signing with the rival Buccaneers. So the Falcons really need to upgrade some things around Malik Willis to make it work. They do have Kyle Pitts, so that does help, a tight end security blanket. But some of the other things are lacking there in Atlanta. The one good thing is that they did pick up Marcus Mariota after the Matt Ryan trade. So Arthur Smith may be looking for that mobile quarterback, give them a little bit of versatility to make those plays. So really looking at the Falcons having some questionable value. I think it's a little bit up and down. He's going to take lumps. I think he's more buried as a QB2. So going over these 4 teams that are most rumored, I think the Steelers, anybody who slides into that situation with Willis' talent is in a good spot. Then would come the Lions, would surprise people, then the Panthers, then the Falcons in terms of the immediate impact of the production of Willis here. So it's definitely going to be a bit of a wait if it's one of those teams in the NFC South to really trust. But the Steelers and Lions might have more immediate value than you think here for Willis in 2022. There's still three more teams that Willis can line up with, according to the latest odds on his best fits in the 2022 NFL Draft. BetOnline.net, we got to talk about them, is your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. That includes things that you can look at for the NFL Draft. We also have the USFL in action here, an alternative to your football action going on right now. You have the major golf tournaments, you got the NBA playoffs, NHL, all that good stuff. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's NBA playoffs. And the start right now, still of the Major League Baseball season. We're still very young into it, and a lot of action coming around in hockey. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use the mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Okay, let us close the show looking at three more teams. We went down the line. So the Lions emerging as the most likely factor, but they finished behind the Steelers in terms of the value there for Malik Willis from reality production and fantasy football perspective. And the Panthers and Falcons kind of neck and neck out of the NFC South, a slight edge to Carolina to be a support system, still as a QB2. Now, Malik Willis could be a QB1, however, with this next team. The Seahawks, we've talked about them in our mock draft, tying Malik Willis to them. You got DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Now your receiving core is Noah Fant at tight end, so that adds an element here for the Seahawks. They've got some other guys, including D. Eskridge on the rise at receiver and Freddie Swaim. So they've got some guys there that are behind Lockett and Metcalf, but Metcalf and Lockett are the main attractions here for any quarterback. The one concern the Seahawks have is Dwayne Brown. Maybe they'll bring him back a little bit faster here at left tackle. He's still unsigned here. Seahawks could also be targeting an offensive tackle with that pick at number 9 overall, the one they acquired in the Russell Wilson trade. But if they want to look for a direct replacement and just say, okay, we traded Wilson, we got this pick, let's use it on our next Wilson and save some money, then you can look at Malik Willis converting into that. Now, they saved a lot of money on Russell Wilson as a third-round pick, right there, the 1 year into the rookie playoff, the rookie structure, I should say, with the salary that they had. And then they had a little bit of a good payoff there with Wilson for a while. They were able to really pay off with the Legion of Doom and buy some time, and they won a Super Bowl early in the tenure of Wilson. So they might be trying to recreate that, only with a little bit more expenditure here for Willis as a higher first-round pick. But again, he's a good fit. You immediately acquire two very good receivers that can help a quarterback produce. And so Willis might have the best rookie appeal with the Seahawks, right there with the Steelers. Again, you want some established receivers. That's what you start with for where is the production going to come from. And then the improvisation is also going to be key. I think Steelers and Seahawks may not let him run as much here as these other teams, but they're not going to also be oblivious to the fact that he can be productive there. So, yeah, look at the receiving core pure there with the Steelers and Seahawks as they stand right now are really good for Malik Willis. Now, we can also look at the New Orleans Saints. They've got those 2 first-round picks. They made a deal with the Eagles, so they're apparently also trying to get in that NFC South mix to be best prepared for when Tom Brady retires to be the next team to take over, and that lines up here. So that's something they have to think about. They definitely have the ammunition to move up and get Malik Willis there. They could make a deal with the team ahead of the Falcons, and that's going to be a trick here. Is that you have the Panthers at 6, the Falcons at 8. So you have to trade between your own division. That's not going to happen. So you got to look at the Giants, target them as a team that you can look at there with those multiple picks. The Jets. These are where you have to attack there if you're the Saints to move up and then get in position to Malik Willis. But you look at their situation, they got to get a left tackle shored up. They have been rumored to take a left tackle. Trevor Penning of Northern Iowa was one of their picks in the first round. So Malik Willis, it's going to be hard to get that offensive tackle to replace Taron Armstead on the left side opposite Ryan Ramczyk. If you have to trade up to get Willis, that means moving one of your teen assets there in the first round. So that's going to be tough there. But that would be the ideal situation if they can somehow pull it off where Malik Willis slips a little bit, Kenny Pickett maybe goes ahead of him, slips a little. The Saints can also get Trevor Penning there to put a left tackle to protect their new quarterback. So a lot of things to look at. Maybe even a Charles Cross could fall to the Saints. So many scenarios for the Saints. But you look at the receiving core. You got Michael Thomas, Marcus Callaway. We're still trying to figure out tight end with Adam Troutman. Traquan Smith has been disappointing. So definitely in the market to upgrade wide receiver. You got Alvin Kamara as a security blanket out of the backfield. Troutman, I think, will have a bigger role as well in that capacity. So and I'll temper my expectations. I still think they fell behind the Steelers, Seahawks, and Lions there as the immediate production as they stand right now. So when you look at them between the Panthers and Falcons, Panthers a little bit better with DJ Moore. The Saints are right now with Michael Thomas. So Panthers, Saints, and Falcons in that order there for the value of Willis as a QB2. Again, still the only situations where I see potential QB1 value that can be returned are the Seahawks and Steelers, the Lions being in between QB1 and QB2 on the borderline. Now let's look at the last team that is rumored to take Malik Willis, and they've been showing a lot of interest late, and this means he could go very high again. So we have the Lions at number 2. You also have the Texans pretty high up there. They've been looking at Neil Nakonwu and the offensive tackle as well, opposite Larby Tunsil, to help Davis Mills. But if they're not sold on Davis Mills, they can look at Malik Willis here for sure. So there's that. And again, Malik Willis, who gives them a little bit of Deshaun Watson on the field with his running ability, being able to have the big arm downfield, has a high ceiling there. A lot of people kind of doubted whether Deshaun Watson can translate his skill set for Clemson. So a lot of similarities there. And Malik Willis, just again, physical makeup, mental makeup. Deshaun Watson, wherever you think of him in what's been going on off the field, very tough guy out there in terms of playing, and that just can handle a lot of things, very cerebral as well. Malik Willis is a very intelligent player there. So there are a lot of qualities and similarities there from Willis and Watson that you have to put the Texans on the radar. Now, Texans are a little bit disappointing. We know that Davis Mills went up and down, but they need some receiver help. If they're going to get Malik Willis, it would be nice if they can somehow upgrade their offensive line with the 2 picks here. And I don't think it's going to happen from the second pick acquired from the Browns, so they're going to have to probably take Malik Willis pretty early. But that second pick, they can maybe look at the offensive line to help. Maybe Charles Cross falls there. Then you can look at wide receiver as well. If Chris Olave or Garrett Wilson or Jameson Williams are there, then you put them with Brandon Cooks and Nico Collins. I like Brevin Jordan. We talked about him as a tight end up and coming with his athleticism, can make plays. You have something there with Willis, but again, you have to temper expectations and look at him more as a QB2. So to recap, QB1 for Willis, potentially backdoor with some of the things he could do, are the Steelers and Seahawks. Then come, I think, the Lions there in between on the borderline to have some value, maybe streaming down the line. Wait till next year, probably in line in order with the Panthers, Saints, Texans, and Falcons here in 2022. So there you have it, a breakdown of Malik Willis, a breakdown of where he could go. What does that mean for fantasy football? We'll do the same on tomorrow's show to close the week with Kenny Pickett, the product from Pittsburgh. Thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. Again, that's coming up tomorrow, a Kenny Pickett breakdown of his skill set and landing spots. Now make your second listen Locked On NFL Draft. Ryan Tracy and former NFL quarterback Eric Crocker bring the NFL Draft to life every day with inside analysis on college football prospects and NFL front offices. It is free and available wherever you get your podcast. For Locked On Fantasy Football, for a breakdown of Malik Willis, this is Vinnie Iyer. Have a great day, and we'll check you out to close the week